Hello everyone, and welcome to PYLUSD for Truth. Today we ask if Dr. Cherniss is the right fit for PYLUSD and whether he should be entrusted with its finances. We'll also look at how members of the board were unaware of a lawsuit regarding district funds in Palos Peninsula Unified School District, PVP-USD, while he was superintendent there, a lawsuit that was still in litigation while he was likely a candidate for PYLUSD. The case in question was filed by Dr. Keith Butler, who was the Associate Superintendent of Business Services in PVP-USD during the 2019-2020 school year, accusing Cherniss of dismissing Butler in retaliation for publicly raising his concerns that Cherniss had potentially put the district in legal jeopardy by misappropriating district funds. These acts centered around litigation between PVP-USD and AYSO Region 10 Soccer League dating back to 2016. To summarize that case, PVP-USD was suing AYSO to recover at least $595,000 for having to take measures related to allegedly contaminated soil brought in by AYSO onto district property. We'd like to note that this case predated Cherniss' time as superintendent of PVP-USD. However, the lawsuit between PVP-USD and AYSO continued to be litigated into Cherniss' tenure as superintendent and played a role in a shady, potentially illegal activity. April 2019. PVP-USD sent out requests for proposals for a Marine Science Center, a project likely to cost several $million. You can find a link to the RFP in the description below, as well as a proposal they received. Separately, in August of that year, the district continued to seek reimbursement from AYSO, now for at least $350,000. The district demanded $100,000 upfront with 5 payments of $50,000 per year for 5 years. As late as November 2019, according to Butler, AYSO had offered a settlement of $105,000 with $80,000 upfront and $5,000 per year for 5 years. In addition to this ongoing litigation, PVP-USD had a bond measure on the ballot in March 2020 known as the Measure PV Bond for school improvements and presumably to help finance the cost of the Marine Science Center. Here's where things get dicey. As the district continued to negotiate the recovery of hundreds of thousands of dollars from AYSO, on January 14, 2020, in court documents you see here, Butler was informed by Cherniss that he had entered into an agreement with AYSO. The agreement he reached, AYSO would donate $50,000 to the Yes on Measure PV campaign and give only $10,000 to the district. In exchange, Cherniss would make the district's suit against AYSO quote-unquote go away. Cherniss also admitted that he could not put these promises in writing, which, according to Butler, was an acknowledgement that it violated education code. This statement is corroborated in a letter from the AYSO's attorney to the board's attorneys in a letter dated April 22, 2020, which asserts that Cherniss and then Regional Commissioner of AYSO Region 10, Bob Caceres, negotiated in person that the district would receive $50,000 toward Yes on Measure PV, plus $30,000 paid over 3 years in $10,000 installments. The letter also states that in a phone call on November 19, 2019, Cherniss confirmed the agreement, but could not put the agreement in writing because of legal concerns. Despite this lack of written agreement, Cherniss assured Caceres that the matter between PVP-USD and AYSO Region 10 would be resolved. AYSO then provided a donation of $50,000 on January 11, 2020 to the Yes campaign, which you can find in financial disclosures here, and $10,000 to PVP-USD, for which you can see a receipt issued by the district here on January 14, 2020. As part of the campaign, the district used Region 10 in their ads supporting the school bond measure, which failed with No receiving 61% and Yes receiving only 38%. So, to recap this part of the problem, the district initially wanted almost $600,000 in reimbursements. Then they wanted at least $350,000, which AYSO countered with $105,000. And Cherniss settled for even less, just $80,000, without consulting attorneys in an agreement that he could not put in writing due to legal concerns. End of story, right? Nope. On March 3, 2020, Butler sent a letter to the Board of Education informing them not only of Cherniss' agreement, which, as of March 2020, had quote-unquote not been presented to the board, approved by the board, and reported in public session, but also further improper actions that pose potential criminal liability for the district. These included, quote-unquote, using district funds, services, supplies, or equipment for the purpose of urging the support or defeat of any ballot measure, in violation of California Education Code 7054. Here is the text of that code on the California Department of Education's website. Also in the March letter to the board, in February of 2020, the district print shop received a request for a quote for flyers of the No Unmeasured PV campaign, which Butler was concerned about because it too could have violated Ed Code for using district equipment and services by having the flyers printed. Butler brought the request for No Unmeasured PV to Cherniss, who told Butler to deny them a quote for the job, which Butler found quote-unquote problematic. Cherniss told Butler he didn't care and he should relay the district didn't want to print the flyers. The No Unmeasured PD campaign knew about the Yes campaign flyers and questioned district policy about what they could choose to print or not print. Butler brought this back to Cherniss, who told Butler in person to quote-unquote tell the print shop to make a mistake on the flyer or delay printing it, to which Butler instantly responded, "We are not having this conversation." He then went to the print shop and instructed them to make sure the job was done correctly and in a timely manner. According to court documents, Butler received no negative feedback from Cherniss, was told by Cherniss that he was doing a good job, and would have his contract renewed. Then, on April 8, 2020, Butler was informed he would not have his contract renewed, which prompted a lawsuit against Cherniss and the board of the PVP-USD. He sued Cherniss and the PVP-USD board in January of 2021. The case continued to be litigated until 2023, with a trial date for January 2023, which was then continued until March of 23. A time in which Cherniss would have been a candidate for superintendent of PYLUSD. The case was ultimately settled in February of 2023 and dismissed on March 14, 2023 due to the settlement, just in time for Cherniss to be announced as superintendent of PYLUSD on April 14, 2023. This case begs several questions, including how the board and those tasked to vet candidates missed the pretty serious allegation directly related to his fiduciary responsibilities. It also calls into question how, if the district conducted a quote-unquote nationwide search, why couldn't they find a single candidate without pending litigation related to the performance of his duties as a fiduciary of the district? We have also confirmed with at least one board member that they were not made aware of this case before Cherniss was hired by the PYLUSD. Also, nearly 5 years after the RFP for the Marine Science Center and millions down the drain, the Science Center has not been completed and likely never will be. How is that our problem? Cherniss and his enablers on the board are forging ahead with a massively expensive sports institute and have not explained where the money to fund it is coming from, all while the district is looking at a deficit next year, and despite what others claim, continued declining enrollment, and spending money on PR promoting charter schools that had little to no public input. What's to keep Cherniss and his allies on the board from racking up millions in costs, only to have him skip town again and leaving parents, students, and the community holding the bag? We constantly hear how Cherniss and his cheerleaders want to put students first. Maybe he thought he was gambling with the house money, but he wasn't. It was the district's money, the public's money, and they lost in having to pay a settlement to Butler as well. And what about Cherniss? He parlayed it into a raise here in PYLUSD, along with raises for all his new administrative hires in our district. We need leaders that do more than pay lip service to putting students first. We need a superintendent who actually does, and board members that make sure he does as well. That's why we think you, Dr. Cherniss, are not the right fit for PYLUSD.